Hello, it's me, Pastor Noah, coming at you with a daily encouragement that I've been waiting to do for a very long time. Hi, if you're tuning in, hello, welcome. If you're not, that's okay. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about developing faith and trust. In a season like this is a challenging time to be a human. I mean, we're constantly hit with stress, whether it's at work, whether it's even just the responsibility to stay home, or the fears about what's going to be taking place in the future, or the fears of how long this season and this normal of being quarantined is going to be. So there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of fears, but just as I've been thinking about the theme that God has been bringing me and what He's been teaching me and trying to communicate to me through this season, it's about that idea of faith and trust, and the difference between those two things. We think about faith as just being trust demonstrated, but there's a deeper level of faith and trust that I think God is calling us to as we continue through this season. So in Mark chapter 9, we see Jesus calling not only the people that are around in the crowds and in the situation, but also the person that He's talking to, the one-on-one interaction that He's having with a man who's struggling with his son having a condition that he can't help with. So in Mark chapter 9, in the context, Jesus has just left the Mount of Transfiguration experience with some of His closest disciples. And so they're coming down from the mountaintop experience, and on their way down, there's a crowd that's building up around this situation with the other 12 that are there taking care of that. And so as Jesus comes to the foot of the mountain, this whole situation erupts, and you have quite a few major characters that come through in the story. So number one, obviously you have Jesus. You have the 12 disciples, some of whom are with Jesus and some are with the crowd. You have the man, the father of this boy. You have the boy himself, and then you have the crowd who's just surrounding this whole situation and create a bit of stress and fear for the disciples. At least you see the sense of urgency, or the sense of frustration surrounding this crowd. And so Jesus comes, and the disciples come to Him, and they say, Jesus, there's a situation with this boy. He's possessed by a demon. We have no idea how to help. We've prayed about it, yada, yada. And then the man also comes, and he says, Teacher, there is this situation with my son. He's possessed by a demon. It hurts him, and so on and so forth. And your disciples aren't able to help. So if you can do anything, please help us. And so Jesus responds, if you can. Okay, everything is possible for those who believe. And the man responds, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. And so Jesus, the way the story goes, He heals the boy. It's after the exorcism of the demon. The child falls on the ground in front of him, and it looks like he's dead, but Jesus takes him by the hands and He picks him back up. And so this family is restored, this boy is healed, and the crowd is amazed at Jesus. And so Jesus and His disciples leave, and the disciples later ask Him, hey, Jesus, why couldn't we help? Why couldn't we make a difference in the situation? Why couldn't we help this boy? And He responds, well, that kind of spirit could only come out through prayer and fasting. And so in the story, the thing that sticks out to me is the thing that the man says in the middle of the story, which is, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. You see, in every aspect and dimension of our lives, we deal with this concept of belief. Your beliefs and your core values influence every one of your behaviors, whether it's brushing your teeth, the way that you parent, your work ethic, everything is affected by the deep things in your belief system. If you don't believe me, if you don't believe that brushing your teeth matters, you don't do it. If you don't believe that working hard matters, you don't do it. If you don't believe that being a good parent matters, you don't be a good parent. And so we see in our belief system, in our value system, it has a way of outflowing into the rest of our lives. And so in our belief system, but not just our belief system, but the things that we believe in, the things that we trust, the things that we put faith in. If I believe that a chair is worth sitting in, I'm going to sit in it. If I believe that this platform is worthy of standing on, I'm going to stand on it. But if I don't believe those things have the structural integrity to hold my weight, I won't stand or sit on those things. Now, in a deeper way, we trust things and people all the time. We trust our government. We trust police officers. We trust firemen and other people who are first responders. A really great example of this aspect of trust is when we trust a medical professional. You see, when we start in our relationship with God, we trust God the same way that we would trust a medical professional. We trust him in the way that we see him as someone who is capable and qualified to help us. And so we reach out and cry out to God to help, to save, to bring salvation, to bring the solution to a problem, because we see him as qualified. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not knowing God. It's not coming into a relationship with him. Steve, the paramedic, might be a great paramedic, but he's not my friend. However, Chad, the nurse, is a great nurse, and he's also my friend. The difference is that even though Chad, the nurse, may be able to help me, and that's great, and I see him as qualified to do that if the need arises, I don't see his ability to help me as the core of my relationship. Rather, I see Chad, the nurse, as my friend, someone whom I want to invest love and time and energy into as a friend. And so it's the core of that is the relationship. And the faith is the trust that I have in him, not merely as a trust in his abilities, but rather as a faith in who he is as a person. And so trust is great. Trust in just our medical professionals and everything. And trust is a perfectly great thing to have in God. But he's also calling us not just only to trust, but also to a faith-based relationship, a faith-founded relationship. So the question becomes, okay, well, if that's what that means, if entering into a deeper relationship with God is what I need, how do I do that? And so the question becomes, okay, is this about knowing more about God or about knowing him? The answer is that it's all about knowing God. It's more about knowing God than it is knowing more about God. And so, yes, you will get to know more about God as you get to know him better. But the point of your relationship is not merely to ask him for help, but rather to get to know him personally, to actually deeply grow in that relationship. A trusted, dear mentor of mine, as I was growing and learning through Kingswood, told me something really important about trust in the context of a relationship. He said that trust is built on time and positive experience. So if you're going to grow in trust for someone, whether it's your spouse, a friend, a stranger that you're just being acquainted with, that trust doesn't happen right away. Like I said with the medical professional thing, I might trust that Steve the paramedic is going to help me if I need him, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have the time put in to call Steve the paramedic my friend. In the same way, I can say, God, you are my savior. And I am so thankful for all that you have done for me. But God is calling us to way, way more than just saying, God, thanks for taking care of my needs. Of course he takes care of our needs. Of course he wants to take care of our needs. I mean, I think we ask way too little of God, way more than we ask too much of God. But I also believe that our relationship with him is based not merely on his ability to supply our needs, but rather on our deep, personal, real, faith-based relationship with him. And so to enter into that trust, to enter into that relationship with God, I believe that it takes time and positive experience. And you're like, well, how do I go from there? Like, where do I take this thing? So the question is, where are you? Well, you can't figure out where you're going to go until you figure out where you're at. You might have a map to get there, but if you don't know where you are, it's not going to help you. And so the question is, where are you? Are you in a place where you need to ask him for help? Because that's a really good place to start. Because God is ready and willing and desiring to lead you into relationship with him, a saving relationship with him that redeems your life, that restores your life. As one of my favorite worship songs say, my body was healed, my family was restored, my life redeemed. And so in the context of a relationship with God, sometimes that's where we start. So maybe that's a great place for you right now. That's your starting point, and that's awesome. Help me is a really great prayer, and it comes right from the heart. And God really loves those prayers from the heart because they're real and they're from a true place within us. As Jesus said, God the Father wants worshipers to worship him in the spirit and in truth. If we can't come to him in truth, if we're denying to ourselves and to God who we truly are, we're not going to be finding real and true healing and rescuing in those places. And so God is calling us into a relationship with him that we say, help me, all the time. But that's only a starting point. There's other times for us that we're still asking him to help us, but we're also asking him to help us to get to know him more. One of the questions that I asked some of my young adult friends who I've been serving just since I've started at Salisbury Baptist, I'm asking, what is God wanting to bring through this experience? What is God seeking to teach you through this season, quarantine in your homes, not being able to do anything? And even if you are still working, whether at a gas station or as a nurse or anything else, how is God desiring to bring about good? How is he desiring to bring about good in your relationships, in your family time, in your time just spent by yourself quietly? There's only so much time we could spend binging on Netflix until we realize that, there must be something more productive and fruitful that I can do with this time. I just don't know what it is. And that thing is a great place to start in, God, what do you want to build in our relationship together? So help me, rescue me, save me is a starting point, and a great one. If you need God to help you, seriously, reach out to him. He wants to enter into that relationship with you right here, right now. And if you're like, well, I don't know if I can trust God in that way. Well, that is something that between you and God that you can work out along the way. If you're like, well, all I can say right now is that I know that I need help, and I also kind of do think that I need something that's higher than me. And so ask Jesus. Ask Jesus to show up. Say, God, I need something. And if you're real, I need you. And if it's a different spot for you and you're like, I know that God is real and I need to seek him and I know that I need him to save my life, then that's a great spot too. But all of that lies in the category of save me, help me, rescue me, right? So that's category one. Category two is when you want to build on your faith, like we mentioned earlier. So the question there is not, God, how can you help me? But rather, how can I more deeply love you? How can I come into deeper relationship with you? Something that I was talking about with my wife recently is just these facts from psychology, where if you love someone, if you pour into a person's life and they refuse to pour back into yours, they fail to reciprocate, there is no reciprocal relationship that is possible. Sure, the person might like you because, who doesn't like it when someone takes care of them? But it's one thing to be taken care of. It's another thing to be in a mutually caring relationship. The reason that marriage can be such a beautiful, good, and amazing union is that reciprocal love and understanding and forgiveness can reap amazing fruits of joy and love and peace in a person's heart that few relationships have the ability to do. However, that only comes by reciprocating. And that big word basically just means to give back to. God loved us first. He's taken all the first steps for us, and he's calling us to love him too. Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. If you don't love me, you won't. But if you want to come into that love relationship that I have between me and the Father, that's available to you. You can come into that right here, right now. And he didn't say that until 3 years into the disciples' relationship with him. In the context of what he said there, his disciples had traveled with him for 3 long, arduous years of discipleship, of training, of equipping, of trying things out, of failing, of making mistakes, of showing themselves to be morons, and then at other times showing themselves to be faithful followers of Jesus. So all of us have that relationship with God where we can say, you know what, I've messed up a lot, I'm not perfect, but Jesus says I can come into a deep relationship with him that is similar to the relationship that he has with God, and not just similar, but rather a relationship that is very much like, in every way, relationship to the Father. And in fact, not just like, but is relationship with the Father. And so if you want to enter into that, and if you want to allow God to come home in your heart, to come and make his home in you in a more deep way. I'm not talking about salvation here. I'm talking about a deeper relationship with God that shows up in crazy ways, that demonstrates itself in the very details, the very littlest details of your life, whether it's intimate conversations with friends, or even just the small ways that you interact in practical things every day. And so there's two things, right? It's, I need you to help me, rather, or I need more of you, right? And so how do we do that? How do we come into that? Well, it's the same question. It's the same question. If it's where are we in this relationship, whether it's help me or help me get to know you more, the response should come to the same bottom line, is help me come into deeper relationship with you. How do I trust you more? Where do you need to invest in that relationship with God? So is that investment looking like, God, I'm just going to reach out to you because you're offering me what I need? Or it's, God, I'm looking to receive more of you, and I'm putting myself in this place to invest that time with you. Oswald Chambers says it pleases Jesus when we take time to have a deeper, more intimate relationship with him. So that's my encouragement for you today. My encouragement for you is that deep love relationship with Jesus is real and available, and it helps us to develop a deeper trust and faith in him that results in greater peace, that results in greater life. And so the prayer is, God, whatever it is that I need to develop deeper in trust and faith, let it be so. Help me to either reach out to you or to invest in my relationship with you. So that's my thought for today. I really am praying for all of you. I'm in your corner, cheering you on, whether you're working from home, you're a first responder. Thank you, by the way, for continuing to do your work. I am so blessed by you, and I want you to know that I'm praying for you. I'm praying for my students. Students, if you're listening to this, I want you guys to know, I love you, and I have not got you off my heart and off my mind since all of this has started. I care about you deeply. I'm praying for you. I pray for my leaders right now. And if you have someone in your life who you need to tell that to, you need to tell them. As one little girl once told me, you should say, I love you a lot. People forget. So God bless you. Jesus loves you, and so do I. And I pray that God continues to show you how he wants to bring hope out of this dark situation. Just make the conviction in your heart confidently that you will reject fear and rather enter into the resurrection life and love of Jesus Christ. He loves you so, so deeply. Thank you so much for tuning into this, and tune in with me tomorrow to hear another one. Thank you so much. Have a great day. I'm going to continue building on this same theme of developing faith and trust through this season. And check out that story in Mark chapter 9 when you have a chance. It's a really great story. It's one of my faves. All right. Have a great night. God bless you, and I'm in your corner.